Hi everyone, and welcome back to another tutorial. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use Elastic Cloud together with Auditd to ingest logs from a Debian server running SSH, right? And with that, we can use the dashboard to have a visualized view of the attacks that is happening to your SSH server that are exposed directly to the internet. Now, the good thing about Elastic Cloud is that you do not have to set up the manual ELK or Elastic stack, right? Or ELK stack, whereby you have to manage and configure the integration manually, right? So with Elastic Cloud, it takes away a lot of the integration time, right? And troubleshooting to set up the base infra. So if you have seen my Elastic Cloud integration with MX Syslog, I've shown you how to create an instance. However, I'm showing you again in this tutorial because there are some changes to the interface, right? As you can see. So when you do a create deployment, you'll be brought to this create your first deployment website. Of course, you need to sign up for a trial account, or if you have already an existing account, you can then go ahead and create a deployment. Now, the cloud provider is still very much the same. You have Google, AWS, and Azure, right, as your cloud provider where you're going to host the Elastic Cloud. Now, what you see here is the cost, right? So for a standard trial deployment, it costs you about $180 a month after the trial. So that's pretty much a huge price tag, especially if you're trying out Elastic Cloud in your lab or if you're running a small environment, right? So I'm going to show you how to configure the settings so that the cost gets reduced drastically. But of course, with that, it comes with its drawback with reduced performance and fault tolerance. So by default, in a GCP instance, the default size per zone is about 180 gig storage, 4 gig RAM, and 2.5 virtual CPU, right? And then it gives you 2 zones for fault tolerance. Now, for testing or lab environment, you might not need that much, so we're going to reduce it down to the minimum, which is 45 gig and of storage, 1 gig of RAM, and 2.5 virtual CPU, right? So, and we may not need the fault tolerance, so I'm going to select 1 zone. So as you can see, once you change the default configuration, you reduce the cost from $180 down to about $19 a month, right? So this is probably a little bit more acceptable, right, if you're running a small setup. However, it does come with its drawbacks, so do take note of the drawbacks of risk of data loss due to only having one availability zone versus two. So in case one of the zone goes down, you're going to lose data, right? And then of course, performance going to get impacted. You might not have enough storage space, so do take note of those, right? However, for testing or demo like this, it's pretty much okay. So we're going to click on create deployment, and Elastic Cloud will automatically deploy the instance, right, in Google Cloud for you automatically, right? So it takes about 5 minutes versus, easily 30 minutes or a couple of hours if you are doing it manually. Now for Elastic Cloud, by default, you will have a root credential with username Elastic and a randomly generated password when you deploy for super user access, right? If you're going to keep the environment for a while and you're going to do your own custom integration, it's important for you to save the password somewhere or just download the file and keep it in a vault, hopefully. Right, for this tutorial, I'm going to delete this instance after the tutorial, so I'm not going to bother masking off the password. Next, what you're going to do is just click on skip, right? It goes through an introduction video, and we'll wait for this installation to complete, and I'll show you the rest of the steps. Okay, now we have done the deployment. As you can see, what we're going to do now is to click on continue. Okay, bring you to the welcome page. What you do is over here, click on add integration. For Linux, you can just click here and search for Linux, right? It will show you what are the agents or the integration method available. So we're going to use Auditd. Click on that. You can read through the overview to just have a quick understanding of how the logs are being collected, the data sets are being mapped. Okay, so next what you're going to do is to just click on Add Auditd. Okay, you'll configure the integration agent policy, right? So you can keep the default. Now, if you're using this for a longer period of time, you want to give it a proper name so that you know what is the integration policy. It helps in your maintenance and configuration of your environment. We'll keep the rest as default for now. Click on Save and Continue. In the background, you will automatically configure the integration. You can add the Elastic agent later or click on Add Elastic agent to your host now. This will give you a step-by-step guide on how to integrate the agent. For this integration, we're going to use the enroll in fleet capability so that all the agents are managed in a fleet. So you reduce quite a fair bit of overhead in terms of running it as a standalone. Okay, so by default, you will need an enrollment token. So when you install Elastic Cloud, a default token has been created. You can use the default token or you can create your own. Right, for simplicity, we're going to use the default enrollment token that is created. Next, you need to download the Elastic agent. You can go to the download page to manually download the agent depending on your operating system. Right, for Linux, I'll show you the command to download the Elastic agent using Debian. Okay, so depending on the distro, the commands are slightly different, but not to worry. If you are running a Debian instance, I already have my commands, you know, written down in my webpage itself. So we're gonna go over to my Debian instance in the cloud. Okay, so to download the Debian agent, the command is actually curl -l-o. Okay, but before that, let me just move over to temp, right, so that we can clean up the download easily. So it's curl -l-o followed by the agent itself. Click on enter. Once it's downloaded, let's just do a quick check. Okay, so we have the file downloaded here. Next, we're going to install using the Debian package manager. The command is sudo Debian package -i followed by the application name. Enter in the sudo user password. Okay, and you will see that the Elastic agent is being installed. Right, when you see setting up Elastic agent. Now, once that is done, right, you will need to enroll the agent. Okay, so if you are using CentOS distro, right, the commands is here. If you're using Debian, right, you need to go to the documentation to learn about the command to download. So I already have the command in my web page. What we're going to do is to copy that command and paste it in, right? So the command to install the agent or to enroll the agent, sorry, is sudo and Elastic agent enroll. So instead of install, we're going to enroll the agent, followed by the URL as well as the enrollment token. So you can see that for CentOS, the command is installed. For Debian, the command is enroll, right? So let's copy the URL and the enrollment token part of the command, right, and paste it in here. So you can see that the difference is install and enroll, right? Very, very little difference. The URL, right? The instance address as well as the enrollment token is here, right? I'm not going to mask this out. Like I said, I'm going to delete the instance after this, but to give you a clarity of what the parameters or the input looks like, I'm going to leave it there. Okay, so once you do that, you will see successfully enrolled the Elastic agent, right? You can ignore the unable to trigger restart and the rest of the errors. As long as you see that it's been successfully enrolled, that means that you have enrolled the Elastic agent to the Elastic Cloud instance, right? To make the agent persistent, right? You can do the enable Elastic agent command using system command or system control, uh, and then once you've enabled the Elastic agent upon reboot, right, you can then start the Elastic agent. So once you do that, um, the logs will start to be sent to the Elastic Cloud. Okay, so we've done the enrollment. You can click on View Assets, right, to see what are the dashboard available, the safe searches available for this integration. Okay, to validate the integration, you can hop over to the integration policies. You can see that we're using demo audit D-1 as our integration policy. Next, to check if the agent is registered in our fleet, you can go to Management, Fleet. You should see that the host, which is our Debian demo server, is now being added, right? The status should be healthy. We are using the default policies. Once that is done, we can take a look at what are the policies available, what is the enrollment token, so that you can create your new enrollment token here. Then we can look at the data stream. Okay, we can see that these are all the data stream that is collected in this fleet itself. Okay, you can change and customize some of the settings. This is the host URL in case you were wondering where to get the host URL. And this is the secret that you need to copy, right? If you want to manually key in your secret key. Okay, next we can go over to Analytics and click on Discover. Okay, you should see the logs coming in, right? So we can see that, about a minute ago, the logs are being sent into the Elastic Cloud. So it takes a while for all the logs to be sent in, right? So do be patient as the logs gets collected or gets sent to Elastic Cloud, does its proper indexing. And then once that is done, you can then go over to dashboards. There are a lot of dashboards that are pretty helpful in terms of understanding your environment from a system management, from an uptime perspective, right? So one good example is on the host overview part of Elastic Cloud, right? So you can see what are the resources, processes, etc., that is being monitored and captured by Elastic Cloud. So over here, you actually see all the various resources, even for your Elastic instance. So we can go to host overview. Just go over to system overview. And we can see that right now we have one system, right? Our Debian host. You can click on that. Okay, and you can monitor the CPU usage, memory usage, processors, the applications that are running from this view itself, right? So it's pretty good right? It allows you to track whether your system load is running healthily, right, from the dashboard itself. For this tutorial, what I will show you is the SSH login attempts, right? It might take a little bit of time for the, oops, okay, so seems that the logs are coming in already. So we are seeing the last 15 minutes log. Okay, you can see that we are pulling in since 8 o'clock, which is where our integration happened, right? So as you can see in the background, right, there are over 200 invalid or failed login attempts, right, in a short 10-15 minutes time frame, right? It shows you that who has successfully logged in, right? So I've successfully logged in using my public key, so you can see that it's been logged in, right? I like the visualization, so you get a high level overview of, where are the attacks coming on from, right? So we can see that we have attacks coming all over the world, right? In terms of the location, it could be SSH, sorry, it could be a mass VPN attacks. It could be just somebody trying to scan for learning. There can be other reasons, right? However, what you're seeing, these are what I call a attempt to brute force your SSH server. Okay, and you can see the IP address that the attacks are coming from. What I like is instead of using your own script to do the geo mapping, it actually Elastic has the script running to map the IP address to the location that is coming from, right? And you can actually see the username that are being used to try and brute force your SSH server. As we can see, there's about 479 attempts. Some of them could be duplicated attempts from the same IP address and same user. However, this gives you an idea of what are the attacks happening, right? And you can actually download this to a CSV, and you can use these IP addresses, right, to block access to your internal network. It's a very old school way of protecting your environment by using IP blacklists. However, for you guys who might be starting up like me, right? This Excel spreadsheet is useful. It allows me to take this and manually map to my DNS security, my web security, my next gen firewall, and see whether what other attacks are coming from this IP address over here, right? So from a learning perspective, especially if you are working towards becoming a pen tester, a blue team, or a red team, right? So this understanding, especially in terms of analyzing logs, are very, very useful in your career if you are in the cybersecurity space. And if you're just somebody who likes to learn and understand what is happening, a visualization like this definitely help you kickstart some of the understanding and reduce the time, right, to manually do commands like find, grab, sed, awk, right, to manually cut and filter off the logs itself. Now, if you are running pen testing using script, the command line way of doing things could be faster. But if you are just looking at having a holistic view of your environment, right, and the attacks that are happening, uh, solution like Elastic Cloud, Kibana, right, or graphites, right, are very good useful tools for you to see this from a visualization perspective, right? As I build up my test environment, I'm going to have more logs coming in. There are a lot more tweaking and customization that you can do so that you can actually do correlation of the attacks based on username, IP addresses, and the services that are being uh, exploited, right? So those are very, very useful environment with a GUI dashboard. It gives you a very good summary, high level overview, and then with that you can then work on how do you create scripts, programs to either enhance your pen testing capability, or how do you enhance your cybersecurity posture in your company environment to put in controls, protections, alerts, right, to protect and detect threats. Okay, so with that, pretty much come to the end of my tutorial. Hope this tutorial is useful and informational to you. Do stay safe and take care, and thank you for watching.